This is the Retirement Mentality channel. This is a place where we talk about personal finance, investing, hitting financial independence, a little bit about the FIRE movement, a lot about real estate investing. And I have real estate in several different areas. I have real estate in Florida. I have real estate in Puerto Rico. I live in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. So we talk about a lot of things with real estate, with vacation rentals, with long-term rentals. I have both of those as well. So if those are things that interest you, thank you for coming by. If this is your first time and if you're returning, thank you very much for coming back. Today I want to talk a little bit about financial independence, how I reached financial independence, and how I got there with only 5 houses in 5 years. It's not rocket science. It's not easy, but it's a simple process. So today I want to just talk a little bit about how I did it. I'll get into the numbers a little bit, but I'm not going to go too far into the numbers. I just want to kind of give you the basic idea of how I did it. I went broke in 2008 when the market crashed. I went to zero. The bank foreclosed on 3 of my properties. So I had to start over from zero. So, I didn't start doing this with a silver spoon. I didn't win the lottery. So if there's something that I can do, you can do it too. So let's get into it. I'll tell you how I did it right now. Well, in a nutshell, the unsexy version of what I did was I just bought 1 house every year for 5 years. That's it. I mean, you could turn it off right now and just start buying houses if you want. That's how I did it. But I'll get into a little bit more about, the process of that and how you can do it. The first thing that you should do is buy a personal residence for yourself. I talked about this and how to get started investing in real estate. I'll put a link to it here or here. I never know where it goes when the camera turns around, but probably over here. You can watch that video. But the first thing, buy a house for yourself. When you buy your personal residence, you can get into a house with 3% down using an FHA loan if you qualify for that. Or there's some other loan programs out there. I'm not going to get into different loan programs. But that's the easiest way to get into a house. And if you buy a duplex, a 2-unit property, this process can go even faster. But I'm going to talk about how I did it. I didn't buy a duplex first. I did buy a duplex. But the first house I bought was just the smallest house that I thought I could afford and that I could live in. Not the biggest house I could afford, the smallest house, like with the lowest price, not just a tiny house. It wasn't a tiny house. It was like 800 square feet, 750 square feet. But don't get the biggest mortgage you can afford. Get the smallest mortgage you could afford for whatever house you think that you can live in. Don't make yourself miserable. I think the tiny house movement is ridiculous. So check the prices where you live. More than likely you can buy something cheaper or for the same amount of money as what you're renting, and you can start building that equity. And that's step 1, buy yourself a house. So what I did after I bought my first house, because we bought a small house and our mortgage payment was, I think, between $750, $800, we'll just call it $800. So with an $800 mortgage payment and me making around $50,000, maybe 60, and my wife making about between 40 and 50 as a school teacher, we were able to live below our means and we were able to save enough money to buy a second property. When you buy that second property, you can do it one of 2 ways. You can either buy it as an investment property, and then you're going to have to look at putting between 10 and 20% down. I'd probably count on 20%. Or if you weren't able to save that much money, you can buy your second house as a primary residence and you can rent out your first house. Now, I will make a caveat here. If you have an FHA loan or some other type of loan, you may have requirements that you have to be in the house for 1 or 2 years. So that's something you'll have to check on. Depending on what type of loan you have, you should be able to buy your second house on your second year. Now, what I did for my second house was I bought a duplex. That was an investment property, so I did have to put 20% down on that property. But I paid about $125,000 for that property, which was roughly, to make the numbers round, $25,000 down payment. But after I bought the second house, the mortgage, I was getting $750 rent. I'll put it over here. $750 rent from each side, so that's $1,500. Minus my $800 mortgage payment. So I was coming out about $700 ahead. So with the money that I was already saving, plus that $700 per month, that's a little over $7,000 a year. We'll call it $8,000. So I'm saving an additional $8,000. Even though I put $25,000 down, I'm saving an additional $8,000. So I'll get that $25,000 back in 3 years. But I'm increasing the rate at which I'm saving. You can call this like almost velocity house buying. It just keeps compounding on itself with every house that you buy, and it gets a little bit easier until the point where it gets harder to get mortgages. But life happens, stuff happens. After we bought the duplex, I actually ended up losing my job because I was in sales at the time, and I had one big account, and that company ended up going bankrupt. So the company I worked for ended up laying me off. Luckily, we had that extra $700 a month income because we had our mortgage covered. So we had a zero mortgage payment at that time. Plus we had an extra $700 a month coming in from the rental house. So this actually gave me the flexibility. I already lost my job. So I actually took a year and I got my real estate license, and then I got into the real estate business. But it took a year, basically almost a year, by the time I went to the school and I passed the test, and then I found a broker, and then I started working. And then it takes a few months when you start working to actually start making money. So I'll do another video about being a real estate agent. But point is, because we had that extra income, I was able to go a year without income, and we lived off of my wife's salary, which slowed our savings rate down a little bit, but we were able to survive. We weren't sweating it, and it gave me the flexibility to get into a business that I really liked. So the next house we bought, actually, as I was being a real estate agent, I saw a for sale by owner sign, and I went to try to get the listing. The guy was priced under market value, and I told him I could put his house on the market and get him a higher dollar for his house. And he said, I don't like realtors. I don't want to deal with realtors. I don't want to deal with any of that. You want to buy my house, you can buy it. Otherwise, I'm not listing it with you. And I was like, well, you're priced about $20,000 under market value. So I ended up actually buying the house from the guy. And so I paid about $125,000 for that house. I bought that as an investment property to be a vacation rental. The duplex, at this point, I had 2 long-term renters in the duplex. This was my first vacation rental that I bought. So that's another $25,000 I had to put down on that house. So now that I had the vacation rental, I made about $10,000 a year profit from the vacation rental. Plus I had raised the rents on the duplex a little bit because they were under market value when I bought it. So now I was making about 10 grand off of the duplex, plus about 10 grand off of my first vacation rental. So obviously my mortgage is still covered. And now I'm making about $20,000 in rental income that I'm getting profit, covering my 2 mortgages from those vacation rental properties. Plus it's paying my $800 a month, which is $9,600. So you subtract $9,600 from $20,000 and you get $10,400. See how good my brain still works. So you get $10,400. So I'm living for free. Plus now I'm making over 10 grand from my 2 rental properties. So the following year, the vacation rental that I owned, actually the house next door was a 4-plex. So they were all connected like townhouses. And the house next door ended up springing a leak in the roof and flooding my house. And the guy had just lost his spouse, and he didn't want to have the beach house anymore, and he ended up selling it to me super cheap. I ended up having to go in there and gut it and remodel the whole thing. But I'd actually, with my real estate job, I started making about $50,000, $60,000 in that following year. I took a year off without work, but then the next year I made about 50, 60, plus with my wife's 50, 60 that she was making, plus with the extra 10 we were making from the rental properties. We actually had saved up enough money to pay cash for that other duplex or townhouse next to my vacation rental. So now with being able to pay cash for that next year, that made about $18,000. So now I went from $10,000 to almost $20,000. Plus I'm living for free because my mortgage is covered. So that's with 4 houses. So now I'm at $28,000 a year in income. Plus I don't have a mortgage that I'm worried about. So that's with 4 houses in 4 years. Okay, so I only got one more house. So you're like, okay, Jeff, $28,000. I don't know if that's going to put you at financial independence. But let me tell you what I did. I bought a bigger house for my 5th house. I ended up buying a big 4-bedroom, 2-bath house that had been sitting vacant for a long time. It had shag carpet this thick and wood paneling and green appliances. And I gutted that thing. I put over $100,000 into the remodel. I put a swimming pool into the backyard, and I made this a big vacation rental that we could rent to 2 families at one time. And I ended up crushing it with that thing. It makes me over $20,000 a year in profit. So with that big house, that put me up almost close to 50,000. Let's just call it 40. We'll call it 50,000. So I was at $50,000 of rental income from my 5 houses. I had the duplex making me about 10, the one townhouse with the mortgage on it making me about 10, and the second townhouse with no mortgage on it making me about 15. So that's 10, 20, 35, and then 25 from the big house. That's 45, 55. Plus my house. I was like, where's the 5th house? Plus my house that I was living in, which that mortgage was covered. That's kind of fuzzy math, but you get the idea of how I did it. And at between $40,000 and $50,000, it easily covered my mortgage of my house. You know, things we were paying like car insurance, gas, food, entertainment, dining out, everything. and we're at financial independence. We're not at that financial independence, retire early yet. We haven't hit FIRE because I don't really have much padding in there. We don't have a lot of cash in the bank because we use all of our cash. We just save, and then we put all of the cash into the next house that we buy, and then we save, put all the cash in the next house that we buy. My goal is to buy 2 more houses. And at that point, I think we should probably be at the FIRE stage. That should get us, I'm going to try to get another house. The next house I'm going to buy, I'm going to pay cash for. So I'm hoping that'll be in the $15,000 to $20,000 range, and then 1 more house. And that should put us over $100,000 in rental income per year. And that's when I'm going to hit FIRE. So I'm close. I've got the FI. I just need the the RE, whatever. But we're close. And that's how I did it. And that's how you can do it. It's not sexy when you tell your friends you want to buy 1 house every year. They're going to be like, oh yeah, great. Good plan there, kiddo. Keep it up. And then 5 years later, when you quit your job, or it depends on the market that you're in, it might take you 10 houses, but maybe you can buy 2 houses a year, or maybe you can buy 1 house every 2 years because you're in a more expensive market, or maybe you have to buy outside of your market. I actually bought a house in Puerto Rico for that reason. You can click up here. I'm not including it in this video because that's my next house I bought, but this is just how I did 5 and 5. So if you want to look at a video about me buying a house in another market, you can click up here or here. That's how I did it. It's not sexy. I didn't do it overnight. I call it my get rich slow program, but I now live on a Caribbean island and my rental property pays for my lifestyle here. I'm still working, but I couldn't have afforded to just quit my other job and move here without that rental income. And now everybody says, wow, Jeff, you're so lucky. I can't believe you live on a Caribbean island. I say, luck had nothing to do with it. Hard work and sacrifice and gambling a little bit on these ideas. That's how I did it. It's like I say, it's not easy, but it's simple. You can do it. So that's it. I won't keep rambling on. Well, if you like this video, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. And when you subscribe, be sure you ring the bell down there. When you ring the bell, it tells you when I put out a new video so you don't miss any of this awesome content. And actually that helps the YouTube algorithm a lot know that you're interested in my videos, and then it helps me grow the channel. So thank you for watching. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting me, and we'll see you in the next video.